Hi everyone, I'm David, and you need to fix your priorities. This is the Rainbow Eye Survival Guide. Mental health among queer people in Utah is notoriously low, and obviously there are a lot of factors that play into that. But a big one you might not be expecting me to talk about is that I don't think most of you have your priorities straight. I want to talk about what I think is going to be the biggest key to your survival as a queer person in this sphere, and it's one that's completely within your control. So chances are, if you've taken a psychology class, you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Basically, it's a psychological framework that states everything on this pyramid is a need. One isn't necessarily more important than the other, but the key statement of this pyramid is that you cannot meet a need higher in the pyramid without first meeting every single need on all of the tiers below it. You cannot satisfy your higher tier without satisfying the lower tiers first. First is our physiological needs: food, clothing, shelter, air, water. Next is our safety and security: physical health, financial stability. Next is love and belonging, which is a community, friends, family, and the like. Then self-esteem, the need to be respected and to feel confident in yourself. And finally, self-actualization, or the actual realization of your potential and your goals for yourself. Our needs must be met in this order, or else your life will get way out of whack and you could even end up in physical danger. And this is where many people, especially queer people in LDS spaces, get their priorities mixed up and put themselves in dangerous territory. Now, religion, when practiced ethically, is one of the very best sources to achieve these two tiers, and is one of the best sources on earth to help you achieve your version of self-actualization. However, being queer in an LDS space immediately calls all of these tiers into question, knocking our capstone completely off the pyramid. We will be talking about self-actualization in future videos, but because of this situation, this is basically out the window for now. Coming out of the closet or spending years being afraid to come out of the closet can gradually erode our relationships with our friends and our family, and even start affecting our sense of safety and security. And in pretty extreme cases, people who come out of the closet in these spaces are kicked out of their home or cut off from financial support, bringing them all the way down to the bottom of the pyramid and shattering even the lowest tier. Situations like this literally put you in imminent physical danger. This is where the danger of mental health issues comes in. Many queer people who have had these needs and these systems eroded feel isolated, ashamed, afraid, out of control, and develop depression and anxiety and other mental health disorders at much higher than normal rates. And this is where we so often unknowingly slip up. So many of us fall into the trap of thinking that if we can just completely convince the church and our friends and our family to completely understand and accept and love us as we are, then all of the mental health issues will go away. And this just isn't completely true. If you are struggling with serious mental health issues like anxiety and depression, the top of this pyramid does not exist for you. You cannot be focusing on those priorities right now. And if you're at the point of suicidal ideation or action, you are at ground zero of the survival pyramid. And you need to take time taking care of these pressing emergency needs before you can worry about anything on the higher tiers. If you are here, you need to get therapy as soon as possible. And if you don't have enough time to get therapy, you need to contact the suicide hotline or any crisis center in your area. And by therapy, I mean a professional, licensed therapist if you can get one. I do not recommend utilizing LDS Family Services. They are not equipped to deal with these issues. Find a therapist who specializes in what you need and can give you an unbiased perspective. You need to drop the rest of your needs and focus exclusively on survival. Now, I'm going to explain why, and this is going to feel like a tangent at first, but I swear it isn't. When I was in college, I was diagnosed with a combination of depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how they interacted with each other, how they affected each other, and how they in turn affected me. For me, personally, in my experience, The heavy hitter here was the OCD. Over the years of growing up LDS and serving a mission, I had completely not realized how severe the OCD had actually gotten until my therapist pointed it out. It was so severe, in fact, that it was literally actively contributing to my suicidality. My therapist worked with me to help me identify key moments and triggers that were triggering the OCD, which in turn was feeding into the anxiety as it all funneled its way into the big old major depressive disorder. Because if I could identify what was triggering the OCD, I could stop the spiral from happening before it even happened. One trigger, for example, was reading. I know, it seems completely benign, but that was a trigger for me. I had a hard time identifying that because I loved reading. As a little kid, I was a voracious reader. Nobody could read more than me. But for me, over time, as my mental illness developed, reading became a trigger for OCD. I would be trapped on the same sentence, reading it over and over and over again, sometimes being stuck on the same paragraph for literally an hour or two or more. This circling and time wasting built up and became a massive stress on my focus, on my schedule, and on my mental health as a whole. And the anxiety of being trapped in something seemingly so benign and tame as that really messed with my head. So, and mind you, this is in the middle of a college semester, my therapist made a wild suggestion. Stop reading. At least for now. Just cut out the trigger for long enough that it stops sending you into new spirals. And once I got a handle on my mental health again, I could begin very slowly and carefully and meticulously reintroducing the trigger again into my life in a way that I could then handle. Now, I was an undergrad and I was taking a lot of credits at the time, so it didn't exactly seem like intelligent advice to cut out reading, but I did anyways, and it worked. My OCD stopped getting triggered constantly, and as a result, I was more calm literally all the time. Not all at once, and not in a drastic way, but it absolutely compounded over the following months. And the calmer I felt, the less frequently I became depressed, the less frequently I was suicidal, the less frequently I became incredibly anxious, and months later, when I decided to start reading again, I tried to reintroduce it, and it still triggered me, so I stopped. So then I tried audiobooks, maybe that would be a bit better. And it was, a little bit, and I still got triggered pretty often. That backwards 30-second button became my friend for a couple of years there, but I only went as fast as I could handle and avoided triggers when they got too bad. This was in 2019, and it took me until 2024 to start reading again at a pace that I was happy with. And I still mostly only listen to audiobooks, but now I can do all of this without hardly getting triggered at all. The moral of this story is that if something is actively triggering your mental health issues, you need to cut it out. Not forever, but long enough to get a handle on yourself to reintroduce that thing at a level that is safe for you. Now here's the operative principle here. This includes church-related triggers. If attending church for both hours every single week is affecting your mental health to the point where you're having thoughts of self-harm or suicide, it's time to cut back. That doesn't make you a bad member. That doesn't make you unholy. That doesn't make you unfaithful. That means you are taking control of yourself and keeping yourself around long enough to see if you can make this work for you. Remember, religion is excellent at fulfilling these top 3 tiers. Those don't exist for you right now. Your territory is here. And I'm not saying it's forever. You can reintroduce these things back into your life when you feel like you're ready to. And I recognize this is really hard advice for those of you who are true believers and may even feel very controversial. But please see that even from a faithful perspective, that this is doctrinally true as well. Yes, God wants you at church. He wants you reading your scriptures. He wants you to pray every day. But much more than that, He wants you alive. Earth was never about performing specific sets of preordained actions over and over and over again to meet some sort of heavenly quota. It was about coming here to understand God's greatest gift to you, your life, and living it in a way that He would be proud of. And you cannot live any kind of life in a crisis. Nobody gets to tell you what you need to do to get better. You decide where your triggers lie. You decide how to treat them, and you decide how to reintroduce them in a way that keeps yourself intact so that you can continue climbing your way up the pyramid of needs. And you are under no obligation to do anything that makes you feel unsafe, unloved, or hopeless. If you are doing what it takes to keep yourself around a little longer, God doesn't just understand that, He wants that. So until next time, stay alive, stay safe, and be a little gay. It's fine.